The year is 1008. 16 merchants are sitting around a table in Chengdu, China. They are not emperors. They are not generals. They are not philosophers. They are businessmen with a problem. And the solution they came up with that day didn't just save their businesses. It invented something that every bank, every government, every economy on Earth still uses today: paper money. But here's what history books never tell you. They didn't get to keep it. Before we go further, this channel is dedicated to breaking down exactly how great businesses rise and succeed. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if this video gives you value, a like takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps more than you think. Now, here's why this story matters to you. Right now, today. Because what happened to those 16 merchants in 1008 is happening again. To crypto founders, to fintech companies, to AI startups. The pattern is identical. Private capital builds something revolutionary. Governments notice, and then the rules change. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see the blueprint, and you'll recognize it everywhere. Chengdu, Sichuan Province, Song Dynasty, China, 1008 AD. The government had made a decision that was crippling commerce across the entire Sichuan region. They had mandated the use of iron coins as the official currency. Not copper, not silver. Iron. Do you know how much iron you needed to carry to buy a single bolt of silk? About 65 pounds. 65 pounds for one transaction. Imagine running a trading business in those conditions. You want to expand your routes. You want to move goods across the empire. But your money, your actual capital, weighs more than your merchandise. Carts broke down under the weight. Merchants were robbed on roads because they were literally dragging wealth behind them. Long-distance trade had become almost impossible. These 16 merchants in Chengdu looked at this problem and did what great entrepreneurs always do. They didn't wait for the government to fix it. They built the solution themselves. Here's what they did. They pooled their iron coins together into a shared reserve. Then they issued paper certificates called Jiaozi that represented the value of those deposits. You deposit your iron. You receive a slip of paper. You use the paper to trade. It was elegant. It was simple. And it was the first private paper currency system in human history. But here's what made it genuinely revolutionary. It wasn't just convenience. It was a market creation move. When money weighs nothing, distance stops being a barrier. When transactions are instant, markets can form anywhere. When wealth becomes portable, economic opportunity stops being local and becomes empire-wide. These merchants didn't just solve their own problem. They unlocked a new economy. Word spread fast. Other merchants adopted the system. Trade volumes in Sichuan climbed. Wealth that had been trapped, frozen by the sheer weight of iron, started moving again. The 16 merchants had done something that governments across the ancient world had failed to do for centuries. They made capital liquid. And then the government noticed. In 1023, just 15 years after those merchants sat around that table in Chengdu, the Song Dynasty government established the Jiaozi office, the world's first government-run paper currency institution. In 1024, they issued the first standardized, government-backed paper money in human history. On the surface, this looked like validation. The state had recognized a private innovation and scaled it across the empire. And it worked remarkably well. The Song government set denominations. They established expiration dates to manage inflation. They maintained metal reserves to back the currency. They even developed sophisticated anti-counterfeiting measures, multicolor printing, special mulberry bark paper, complex imperial seals. For perspective, Europe's first banknotes wouldn't appear until 1661 in Sweden. The Bank of England wouldn't begin issuing notes until 1695. China had done all of this 671 years earlier. But here's what the history books skip over. The merchants who built the system lost control of it the moment the government stepped in. The private Jiaozi system was absorbed. State institutions replaced merchant networks. The entrepreneurs who had taken the risk built the trust and proven the model. They were now operating inside a system they no longer owned. It's the oldest story in capital history. Private innovation creates the market. The state scales it, and the builders become employees of their own invention. But what that government-scaled capital built next? That's where this story becomes extraordinary. When money stops weighing 65 pounds per transaction, something remarkable happens. Commerce explodes. By the late 11th century, the Song Dynasty had used paper currency to fuel an economic expansion that the world wouldn't see again for 700 years. Consider this number: 125,000 tons. That's how much iron China was producing annually by 1078 AD. England, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, wouldn't reach that level of iron production until the late 18th century. The Song weren't just producing iron. They were running blast furnaces powered by coal-fired technology. They were building suspension bridges, equipping the largest standing army in the world, exporting ceramics and silk across Asia and into the Mediterranean. And none of it would have been possible without the liquid capital that paper money created. Because paper money didn't just make trade easier, it created a merchant class. For the first time in Chinese history, wealth could accumulate outside of land and government position. A trader in Hangzhou could become richer than a provincial official. A manufacturer in Chuzhou could finance expansion without royal patronage. Capital had escaped the palace. And when capital is free to move, it moves toward opportunity. Cities like Kaifeng and Hangzhou grew to populations exceeding 1 million, among the largest cities on Earth at that time. A commercial middle class emerged. Private enterprise flourished alongside state production. The Song Dynasty had created something the ancient world had never seen before: a market economy, powered by paper, built by merchants. And then, in 1279, it ended. The Mongols conquered China. The last Song emperor, a 7-year-old boy named Zhao Bing, drowned in the waters off Yamen in 1279, held in the arms of a loyal minister who chose death over surrender. An entire civilization fell in a single generation. The Mongols, under Kublai Khan, did initially maintain elements of the paper money system. Marco Polo, who visited China during this period, wrote with astonishment about how the Great Khan made his subjects accept paper as if it were gold. But the Mongol Yuan dynasty inflated the currency catastrophically. They printed money to fund wars with no reserve discipline. By the time the Yuan collapsed in 1368, paper money had lost the trust it took the Song 2 centuries to build. And then came the Ming Dynasty. And the Ming made a choice that would alter the course of world history. They looked at the merchant class, the commercial freedom, the international trade networks, and they saw not prosperity, but threat. In 1371, the Hongwu Emperor issued the Haijian, the Sea Ban. All private maritime trade, illegal. The merchant fleets that had carried Chinese goods to Southeast Asia, India, Arabia, and East Africa, grounded. The emperor's reasoning was blunt. Merchants were destabilizing. Commerce created independent wealth. Independent wealth created political challengers. Better to control the economy than to let capital run free. Then, between 1405 and 1433, Admiral Zheng He led 7 extraordinary maritime expeditions, reaching as far as East Africa with fleets of over 200 ships, dwarfing anything Europe had at the time. Then the Ming government canceled the program, burned the ships, banned the construction of ocean-going vessels. Not because the voyages failed, because they succeeded. And the wealth they generated went to merchants and admirals, not to the palace. The most advanced naval power in the world chose to become landlocked by choice. The merchant class was dismantled. The commercial infrastructure was left to rot. The paper money system that had fueled the Song's golden age was replaced with rigid state control. And 150 years later, when Portuguese and Spanish ships appeared on China's coast, carrying the economic ambitions of European empires built on exactly the same commercial principles China had abandoned, the dynasty that once led the world had no answer. Private capital had been erased, and erased capital doesn't fight back. So why are we talking about 16 merchants from 1008 on a channel called Crown Capital? Because this isn't history. It's a blueprint, and it's playing out in real time. Think about Bitcoin, a private innovation built outside government systems that created a new form of liquid capital. Then governments noticed, and now, country by country, the regulation is closing in. Some are scaling it, like the Song scaled the Jiaozi. Others are banning it, like the Ming banned the merchant fleets. Think about fintech. Private companies built payment systems that banks couldn't. And then central banks started issuing their own digital currencies, scaling the innovation while pushing the builders to the margins. Think about AI. Startups are moving faster than any government institution can. But the regulation is coming. The question isn't whether governments will intervene, it's whether they'll scale what private capital built or ban it. The pattern is always the same. Private capital identifies the problem. Private capital builds the solution. And then power decides who gets to own it. The merchants of Chengdu understood the problem. They built the solution, and they lost it. The only question that matters for anyone building or investing today is this: are you building something governments will scale, or something they'll shut down? Because the answer to that question is what separates the next generation of wealth from the next Haijin. Here's what I want you to think about and drop in the comments. Which industry today do you think is closest to the Ming moment? The point where government intervention goes from scaling innovation to shutting it down. Crypto? AI? Fintech? Something else entirely? Drop your comments below. I am reading every single one. If this breakdown gave you value, like this video. It helps this channel reach more people who want to understand how great companies and empires are actually built. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. We break down the business moves throughout history. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.